Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I connect successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Madeline Reeves, the owner of Fearless Foundry and an entrepreneur forging her own definition of success, and Jamie Trull, a fractional CFO turned full-time financial educator through online courses and her YouTube channel. So if either of those sound interesting to you, definitely go back and check out some of our past episodes. Today's episode is brought to you by my company, Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is dedicated to providing financial clarity and profit maximizing solutions to small businesses. The team at Clara CFO are seasoned accounting professionals with a heart for small business. We help growth-minded entrepreneurs thrive through fractional CFO services and financial education. To learn more about Clara CFO Group and how we can help your business, visit claracfo.com. Or you just feel free to email me directly at hannah@claracfo.com. So today we have Gina Cotner. How are you, Gina?
Hey, Hannah. Great. Good to be here.
Good to see you. I'm going to introduce you because we have a very exciting conversation to have today. So Gina is the founder and CEO of Athena Executive Services. Her team of high caliber executive assistants work part-time from home, taking many tasks and projects off the plate of successful entrepreneurs and executives, leaving them more time to spend on the things that matter most. Gina has worked remotely for over 15 years with national and international teams. And more recently, she's focused her business life on work-life balance, wellness, and the personal satisfaction of busy professionals. And she does all of this within a 10-hour work week. So, Gina, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I've got lots of questions, especially about this 10-hour work week, but we will get to that. But I would love to hear just how you got into this business of working with executive assistants.
Yeah, sure. I had been a small business owner, and let me back up even more. At once upon a time earlier in my career, I worked for Big Blue. I worked for IBM, and it was a great place to be in my late 20s and my early 30s. And then I don't know if it just because it was the time in society that it's like the early 2000s, or if it's just because I was in my early 30s and maybe everybody in their early 30s goes through some phase called, um, what? I could have passive income? I could work for myself? That sounds so freeing. And, go to all the big, I don't know, listen to the gurus talk in the big hotel conference rooms and be like, yes, I want freedom. I'm not going to have a job. I'm going to work for myself. I'm not going to be bound by 2 weeks of vacation per year. So it's pretty good. I mean, it planted a lot of seeds in my head about entrepreneurialism and, wanting to have some freedom and some control over my own time and destiny, so to say. So I did around 2006 decide, okay, I am going to leave IBM and I am going to venture out. And I had a good friend who had just opened a restaurant at the time. And I thought, oh yeah, I could do that. And I had this brilliant idea that I was going to go open a martini lounge.
Oh,
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about, margins at the time and how margins are made in that industry. So, and it's, I left IBM in 2006. I spent a year and a half finding a business partner and talking to banks and finding the real estate and writing the plan. And I'm just like so excited. I can just envision myself in this like swanky martini lounge in the back booth being like, yes, this is my place. And then I was like, this may not go well. And we were about to just mortgage everything the two of us owned. And it was 2007. And little did I know what was around the corner. And it was the best thing I never did. I just pulled the plug on it.
Wow.
Said, I don't think I can go have a baby with you, which is kind of what it was going to be like, right? I don't know that I can be up at 2 a.m. running a business with you. And then the huge recession hit. And it was just, again, the greatest thing I never did. And
Mhm.
then I was, a business coach for a little while, and I tried this little business, and then I would do a little freelancing, and then somebody found me, and I was a hospitality consultant for a while. Um, and I left my husband and left him the house, um, and moved into an apartment, and I started getting pieces of mail that were pink colored and yellow colored, which I had never gotten, which scared me. And I opened them up, and they were warnings that, my house was about to be foreclosed upon because the
Oh,
mortgage wasn't getting
yikes.
paid.
Oh, yikes.
And I got scared, really scared, and tried to figure out how to short sell it. What were we going to do? And I'm being an entrepreneur, and that isn't really thriving. And I just said, this is enough. I can't handle any of this anymore. I just need a job. I just need a job, kind of a simple job. I just want to show up somewhere. I want to make a difference for somebody and then have money arrive in my bank account, please. That's
Right.
all.
Mhm.
And so I saw somebody on Facebook looking for an executive assistant. And I was like, I think I could do that. I
Yeah.
think I could do that. And I
Mhm.
became this woman's EA, and she was a CEO of a small firm. And I went to the office and managed her calendar and the office a little bit and organized stuff and did all kinds of random EA tasks. And then she got out of the lease of the office, and all of us were working from home. And what year is this? This is maybe like, I don't know, 2012, maybe 2011. So this is way before everybody was forced to work from home. And I was an
Right.
EA for the CEO, and I'm working from home, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And, my mom and dad had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a lot of education. And so even my mom, there I am in my early 40s, is like, you're what? And I was like, I'm an EA. You're an executive assistant? Like, that's what this amounted to?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I am. And I'm happy. So just, relax. Um, And that business that I was working for just kind of got smaller and smaller and smaller, and she didn't need an EA. And I said, I'm going to go now. At the same time, my father was about to pass away. We knew his passing is imminent. And I said, I'm just going to go and be with my father in the last 6 weeks of his life. And I did. And that was in 2015. And I spent the last 6 weeks of his life with him. And he passed away. And I went back home to Seattle. And I grieved and mourned and just let myself do whatever the heck I felt like for 3 or 4 months. And then I woke up one day and said, all right, I'm ready to find another CEO. I'm going to do this again. And I wrestled the bushes and asked all my friends, like, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? And one of my friends, Tiffany, said, my CEO needs you. We're growing at breakneck speed, and he needs an EA in a big way. And I said, okay. And I started working for him. And 3 months later, I was at home most of the time. But I went into the office like one day a week and opened up all of his mail and filed it away and all this stuff, cleaned his
Mhm.
office. Um, then about 3 months later, she goes, hey, I'm going to need you next quarter. So if you can plan ahead for that, I'm going to need an EA. And I said, well, I'm full. My bandwidth is full. I'm not looking for anybody else. And she said, no problem. Just find me somebody like you.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And she said, this would be a really good business. And I said, I really don't want to be an entrepreneur. Like, been there, done that, don't want that. Thank you very much. Um, and she said, well, just find me somebody and we'll bring them in. They'll be my EA and you coach them and it'll be great. And I said, okay. And we had a lot of mutual friends. We put our heads together and we came up with this woman named Dorian that we both knew. And she was like 25 and she'd only worked for one company her entire life. Like for 7 years, she'd worked for YMCA of LA. And she still lived at home. And I said, Tiffany, we cannot mess up her life. You have got to be a good person to work for, and I'll be a good coach, but we can't just pluck her out of her little world and then screw it up. And she said, okay. So Dorian's like, I would love to work with you guys. She becomes Tiffany's EA. I'm coaching her. We're humming along. And then Tiffany says 3 months later, the guys in sales are doing way too much admin work. They
Mm.
need an EA. And I said, Tiffany. She said, find me somebody. And I said, I don't want to. And she said, get over yourself. Go open this as a business. And I did. Well,
So,
there you go.
so
Then
thank you,
we found
Tiffany.
Allison. Yeah, so thank you, Tiffany. Yes. Yeah. And then we found Allison, and then that was our first payroll. It was me, Dorian, and Allison. And I still worked as an EA for like another year or so and then worked
Yeah.
myself out of a job.
I love that story because I think that happens so often with service-based professionals or service-based businesses. We start out doing something ourselves, thinking, I'm just going to kind of do this thing for myself and it's going to be fine. And then you start to see the opportunities, and then people start asking. And then before you know it, you kind of have that snowball effect of like, okay, well, and I think the thing about that is you see something and you're like, well, if one person needs this, probably other people need this service too. So I think that's kind of a interesting story, and you were reluctant, but I'm glad that it transitioned over to you. Are you happy now that you own your own business versus like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
being an
And
EA for somebody else?
yeah. And having lived through the transition of, uh, I'll just be kind of a freelancer, just do my
Hmm.
own little thing to, okay, maybe me and a buddy are going to do this thing. Okay, now maybe I'm self employed. But wait, I'm not really running a business. There's a transition between I'm self employed and now I'm running a business that has systems.
Hmm.
And so that's been exciting over the last 7 years to just grow the business and build this system and that system. And how would I vet and screen an EA? And how would I onboard a client? And how would I market and kind of build out every division of the company slowly over time? There was no rush about anything, but it was like a snowball. Then there were 4 people working for me, and then there were a couple more clients, and it just grew like that. And now there's 20 people on our staff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how did we get here? And I do love it. My favorite thing is I don't like managing anybody's calendar. Like I hate doing EA work in my own home.
Right.
With my partner, John is like, well, can you get that scheduled for us? I'm like, fine, I'll get fine. You know, I loved it at the time, but I just kind of outgrew it. I love now empowering and coaching and developing
Right.
people. And that's, you know, done me very well.
Yeah. That's amazing. Um, what do you think? Like, what's the difference between like an executive assistant versus an administrative assistant or a personal assistant? I
Yeah.
think sometimes people are like that. Those lines seem a little blurred.
Yeah. And then this whole world of virtual assistants.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then
That
you've
too.
got all those distinctions in a building somewhere, and you got all those distinctions online,
Yeah.
really. And it somewhat has to do with geography and where you are. Sometimes people will refer to an executive assistant as a personal assistant, and
Hmm.
that's fine. They mean, in many people's vernacular, it means the same thing. Now, if you go, I live in Seattle. So if you go to Amazon and you look at their website, you'll see various tiers of administrative support, right? So
Hmm.
there's administrative assistant. Then there might be admin assistant one, admin assistant two, admin assistant three. Then they become executive assistants. Then there might be a lower level executive assistant. A lower level executive assistant might serve, say, 5 directors
Mm.
or 2 VPs or something like that. And then they move up, and the really senior EA will be the EA to a vice president or the EA to a CEO.
Right.
And now we have the whole world of chief of staff. And we're
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
differentiate. Okay, then above that is somebody who's even kind of maybe a little higher up. So an executive assistant, I think of as somebody with a lot of business acumen, which is what I opened was a company thinking, you might need somebody with a high level of business acumen, like somebody's got on the 40th floor of the downtown high rise, but you don't need them 40 hours a week.
Right.
Maybe you only need them 10 hours a week. Then there is so personal assistants and EAs could be very similar because a great EA is happy to serve your personal life as well, right? Like, let's figure out where we're going to host grandma's 75th birthday party, and what are we going to do for all the holiday gifting and all the birthday cards and all the anniversaries and the vitamin orders and the whatever orders. And then you've got the executive part, which is, oh yeah, let's grow this business together. So it's the wild, wild west. It's unregulated. A lot of those terms all mean the same thing, depending upon where you are talking. Now, the virtual assistant world is also heavy overseas, particularly in the Philippines. So, and again, VAs could be lower level task doers, they could be higher level thinkers with you.
Hmm.
But that's probably a whole other podcast for another day, the 411 on the VA industry. But hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, I think so. And virtual, I mean, virtual assistant could be a virtual executive assistant. It could be a virtual administrative assistant. Your entire team is virtual because they work from home, right? So, so you have virtual executive assistants. Like an EA wouldn't be somebody who is going to your house and doing your laundry, like your personal assistant might, or, being at home prepping your meals for you. Like I know there's personal assistant businesses that do that kind of thing. But this would be, mostly probably computer type tasks that, an admin assistant or an EA assistant might be doing. So that's kind of good
Absolutely.
to differentiate between. Um, I want to know like these executive assistants. So if people get to the place where they're like overloaded with tasks, right? I mean, I feel like that running this business, I'm always trying to like do so much. I find it hard to offload things. So what are some things, and I run into this a lot with our clients and, where their capacity, because we work directly with the CEOs, typically the CFO and the CEO. So we see like, hey, you need to be spending your time doing more higher level things, growing the business, thinking more strategically, maybe like working on networking more than some of these administrative tasks or things that are kind of bogging down their schedule. So we're constantly trying to get people to offload tasks. What do you think are some of the mindset blocks or the things that are keeping people from, doing that when they kind of know they need to?
Yeah. Well, there's some real classics, right? Why should I delegate something I can do myself? Why should I pay somebody to do something I can do myself? Why should I pay somebody and invest my time to train them?
Yeah.
And why should I do all of that when not only could I do it, I could do it better and
Mhm.
faster? So,
Yeah, why?
yeah, what's the answer, Gina? Well, here's the answer. The answer is if you like what you're doing, keep doing it.
Mm,
But it has cost, as you see, as the outsider, professional outsider looking in on those businesses, it's costing those business owners something that they are holding the low level work. So there's just that called really. Are you really going to spend your time on hold with IRS? Really? That's what you're going to do? Or any number of things, really? You're going to be the one sending out the invoices? Okay, no wonder they're all going out late.
mhm,
You know, what I would say though to those CEOs and what we say to our clients too is you are in the beginning, you're right. They aren't going to do it as fast and they may not do it as well. You're investing today with your assistant and the time you invest with them and the training that you give them, you're investing in who you're going to get to be 3 months from now.
mm,
And then imagine 6 months from now. And then imagine a year from now. So I invested heavily in my staff in how the invoices go out in our company. But now I just, on the top of my calendar on the 1st and the 15th of every month, it says, it's invoicing day. Oh, yeah, look, it's invoicing day. Oh, Corrine must be just all over that. But I invested in that. Now, I mean, I had some moments of truth about that. And one was, the joy of working for yourself is, well, you can work from anywhere. And that seems really dreamy. And then you do things like you go on vacation to Maui, but it happens to be invoicing day while you're in Maui and you're super strict about when invoicing day is. And so while your friends are snorkeling, maybe you might be the one on the lanai at the resort with your laptop sending out invoices. Maybe
mhm,
might be that
mhm.
kind of person that maybe had that experience like I did.
I
And I was sitting there one day and I said, you are not doing this again, Gina. You're in the freaking South Pacific sending out invoices. You are stupid. Stop it. And I just was like, never again. I don't know what it's going to take, but I am going to turn this over to somebody. And, there's all kinds of, that's probably a whole other podcast, right? How to delegate effectively. But I did, but I was investing in the beginning, it was a lot of training and watching over and make sure this is worded like that and make sure that. But now I do nothing about it. It just happens. So that's one of the biggest mindset shifts is in the beginning, it's not going to be instant relief. You are investing. But now everything my EA knows about how I like to travel, she has it all. She has all the numbers. She has all my preferences. She has all the everything. And I try to see my mom once a month. She lives down outside of Palm Springs in Rancho Mirage. And I say to Corrine, I'd like to go see my mom approximately October 12 to approximately October 15. Go. And she sends me back exactly what I would have spent an hour messing around with. That's the other thing, is just the time sucks out there. I even enjoy shopping those kind of things sometimes. Like, oh, well, what if I went a little earlier in the day? Oh, well, what if I went on Tuesday? Oh, well, what if I spent points? Except then an hour and a half is gone. And
Right.
that is not the highest and best use of me. I mean, I think this is my other motivator for why delegate and turn things over, is that I think we ought to, and we all want to, be used for what is the highest and best use of us. We don't, like a surgeon. I think we all want to be like the surgeon. So the surgeon does all the schooling and gets paid top dollar for doing this specific thing. And she drives up to the hospital in her fancy dancy car for surgery, goes, scrubs in, somebody puts all the gear on her, right? She goes into the operating room. She does the thing that she's paid the most for, that she's highly trained for, that she's probably walking the planet for. She does this amazing surgery. She walks out. Somebody takes all that stuff off of her. She gets back in her car and goes golfing or plays pickleball or goes to her kid's soccer game or whatever. But that's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff she's not doing, the cleaning of the instruments and all the other people's roles that are in that. She just gets to be used for her highest and best use. And that's what I think, that's what I want for everybody. Because even if it's a long, hard day of surgery, or for you having a long, hard day of your kind of critical thinking, it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's not, I tried to resolve my internet issue for half the day, which is like soul sucking.
It definitely is. I feel like you're preaching to me right now. This is the exact message I need to hear. So maybe subconsciously, I was like, yes, I need to have you on the podcast so that
We're just letting other people
you
listen
can,
in on our conversation.
you're like coaching me right now. Okay. Okay. I hear you. I hear you. Because I literally just had, moments like that. I took a 3-week vacation, but I literally had to leave dinner with my friend and go and run payroll because I forgot and the timeline was about to be hit. So I had a beautiful pot of fondue in front of me. I was in Switzerland, I was in the Alps, and I was across
Ah,
the table from my friend. And I was like, hold on, I will be right back. I have to go run payroll. And it was this like
oh,
awful moment of, and I had just hired a new admin assistant, and I'm thinking payroll is something I'm going to put on her plate. I'm going to teach her how to do payroll,
yes.
but she just started, so I didn't have time to
Yeah.
train her before my trip. So thank you for that, because we don't want to
Oh,
have those moments of missing out on those like really special times. And I agree. We should be, using our time to what our best use is, highest and best use. I like that. Um, so thank you
you're,
for
you're
reminding me.
welcome.
That's on
Hannah's
the
personal coaching session that everybody else can benefit from.
yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's like talk a little bit. I want to hear more about kind of the behind the scenes in your business, because you have been very gracious to share some of that with us. Tell us a little bit about your team right now. Like what's kind of the structure you have? You obviously as like the CEO, but kind of who do you have around you? And because you have told us you only work 4 hours or 10 hours in a work week. So I would love to hear kind of who's on your team that kind of helps that
Yeah.
make that happen.
Sure. Yeah. So, and I'll tell you a little bit, like that's kind of how we got there. So it was me, Dorian, and Allison. There we are. We're all EAs. So for a while, I just kept bringing on board EAs, and I kept doing the work. Now everybody were contractors,
Hmm.
so I was too scared to have employees. Frankly, I was just on multiple levels, but this also fit as pretty good independent contractor work.
Yep.
Now, laws continue to change and I continue to have to stay abreast of what constitutes a contractor and what doesn't and stay legal. Let's
Yep.
put it that way.
Mhm.
So let's see. In the beginning, I worked myself out of a job because I realized I did want to actually run the business and own the business. So that was the first thing I did. So then Allison took my client and we worked that out. And then at some point, I'd say 3 or 4 years into the business, Dorian was, teammate number one. And I was really, really tired of all the process of bringing on board contractors. But I
Mm.
had the system set up. So to the degree that you have systems set up is the degree to which it's going to be easy to turn over any process in your business. So that wasn't just ad hoc. That was step one is this, step two is that, step three is this. Here are the multiple phone calls I'm going to have as I'm vetting and screening people coming through. Here are the exercises I'm going to have them do.
Right.
Here's the vision, mission, values call we're going to do with them. But after a while, I was sick of it. I was like, if I have to have one more initial call with somebody who asks me the exact same question, I'm going to throw up. So I said to Dorian, would you like to run this part of the business? Now, this was going to be scary for me too, because this was now going to be an actual back end expense. Because every hour that Allison and Dorian and the rest of the team worked, they made money, but the company made money. And I had to figure out how many hours I needed people to work such that I could get paid enough to be running the business and get all the bills paid.
Mm-hmm.
That was the dicey moment where I'd be like, maybe I'll move money from my this account over to that account to this, and like until everything popped. But it was scary because on the one hand, every hour they worked, we made money, but did we make enough money for me to not have to work?
Yeah. You became overhead at that point in time, like
Right,
when
exactly.
you
And
weren't
if I
serving
were
clients anymore.
exactly, and if I
Yeah.
were to say, cool, I'm going to have Dorian now do all the vetting and screening of any new staff, great, but that was now going to cost money.
It's more
But I
overhead.
had this insight called, but I get her at wholesale,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
which kind of interested me. I was like, okay, well, you have EAs around you and you're not, I got to pay them, but I'm not paying what clients would pay. So, all right, just maybe try just a few hours. What if she spent a few hours a week doing this? Would that be just a little bit of overhead that you've got to incur? And could she start taking over? So she started taking over parts of that until she finally owned the whole thing from soup to nuts. Those
Mm.
resumes came in all the way through to Gina. I think this one we should hire. I'd have a final interview with them. And I represented the sales side. So then she and I would figure out, okay, which new client are we going to pair this new EA up with? And we hummed along like that for a while and we grew and grew and grew. And then in 2020, the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
We lost 40% of our clients just in like
Wow.
3 months or so. They were all the brand new guys.
Uh,
Anybody who had had an EA more than 6 months was like, I don't care. The building can burn down. I'm not letting go of my EA.
yeah.
Then coupled with everybody's got to now work from home, and we were already work from home. So we happened to be a business that the pandemic threw gas on the fire. Because
Yeah.
now anybody who was like doubtful about how do you have somebody support you working from home? That's weird. Was now like, oh, you guys know how to do that? How do you do that? We need to hurry up and learn how to do that. So we nosedived in 2020. And then in the summer, we started to kind of come back up for air. And I found one of our rock star EAs, Jennifer. And I said, Jennifer, would you like a bigger role in the business? And she said, yeah. And I said, I'd like to create an operations manager.
Um,
Dorian had gotten hired away by a client. So that's something else we offer in our company is if you love your EA and you want to hire them away to be your own, you can. You pay a conversion fee and you guys can. So she had ridden off into the sunset.
mm.
And Jennifer had taken over for her on the vetting and screening of the team members. So she knew that part of the business. And my big pandemic project in 2020 was I trained her in our sales process.
Mm.
So she knew how to onboard and vet and screen new staff. And then I trained her in how do we deal with incoming prospects. And that was hard. I mean, I had to really think through, how am I going to have her look from where I look from? When you talk to a prospect, you don't necessarily know what's going to come up in that conversation. But again, I had a system. This is what we talk about in the initial call. This is the questionnaire that goes out. This is the complimentary consultation session. I even one time got a prospect to agree to let me record our Zoom call. I just said, I know we're having a discovery, a get to know each other conversation. Can I record this for training purposes?
Yeah.
I'm
Like
like a
you
big
hear
company
on,
all of a sudden.
yeah, like every customer service line that you call, they're going to say this call is being recorded for training purposes. So,
And he said,
what you
yeah.
said.
So she got to watch me live in action. I also trained her, and she studied, she studied my answers to a lot of questions. And by the fall of 2020, she was our operations manager. And that was huge. I mean, that was where I started being able to work 10 hours a week,
Yeah.
really.
'Cause
The
you
other
were doing all the sales, and then you were still kind of like you were probably needing when you lost your other employee that was doing all the employee onboarding or contractor onboarding. That makes sense.
Yeah. So she started owning all that, and the business started to grow again. And I had previously turned over invoicing ever since my Maui incident. I
Yes.
had turned that over to my EA. And I didn't know she'd hold that forever, but she has really ever since then. As wild as it seems, but she does all of our invoicing twice a month, and she's like amazing at it.
Because you have an
Um,
EA yourself, right? You're
yes.
like
And
practicing what
I
you're preaching.
Exactly, and I didn't in the beginning, right? So the Taylor's children have no clothes kind of thing. I didn't have an EA, but I'm
Right.
talking to people about having an EA, and I really did think I knew everything about having an EA. And it was a game changer once I got my own EA. I actually experienced some of those thoughts, worries, concerns that clients have. I did go, okay, should I spend money to have her buy buy and order flowers for my mother's birthday? Is that stupid? Is that like a stupid use of money? I mean, that's only going to take me like 15 minutes to do. So I wrestled with that. And then I don't know, it's just one of those drugs. Once you take it, once you get used to it, you don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Uh, she's the one who always, sorry, mom, if you're listening, it's not me who picks those flowers. It's
Well,
Corey.
you have to remind for sure.
I do. I do, exactly. I tell her what colors to get, mom, and I give her the message. I promise she doesn't write
Yes.
the message. Yeah. So Jennifer was the ops manager for a couple of years. And then Dorian wanted to come back on staff. Dorian said, I'd really love to come back and work for you. And I said, there's just no way we can afford that. She said, I'm making this salary at this and such a company.
Right.
There's no way, no how. And then we kept talking, and she's one of my best friends. And I just thought, oh my God, Gina, just look and see. And then one day, I don't know, a couple years ago now, was it maybe a year ago? Anyway, I just crunched the numbers, and I was like, I brought her up back on board, and she's a manager now. So she and Jennifer are now salaried managers. Jennifer manages the client care and biz dev, and Dorian manages all things staff
Nice.
and ops,
Mhm.
really, and operations, which tends to kind of bleed into finance and
Right.
like that. And then Corrine does all of our invoicing. And about 6 months ago, I converted every California contractor to an employee
Mhm.
because of the laws in
Yeah.
California.
California is
So
so
now we're a mix
okay.
of employees and contractors, and then three of us are on salary.
Mhm. Amazing. Thank you. I mean, I think that gives a lot of insight. We have a lot of service-based businesses that are they're trying to figure out really how to structure as they grow, and then kind of what is that next best hire as they continue to grow. And I think that flexion point probably of the owner doing a lot of that ops work is like a real challenging point. And you kind of need to be at a certain size and probably a certain revenue to make some of those like financial decisions. When you were doing that, was there any point in time that you decided to like leverage a little bit of debt to kind of, that chicken and egg kind of thing of like, okay, do I just make the investment and hire this person? Or do I just try to run it all from profits of the business?
I didn't, so I've never gone into debt. Um, really, I put $5,000 in the bank, and that was the beginning.
Yeah.
Last
Amazing.
year we cleared 850.
Yeah.
So, no, we haven't. Again, I was fortunate in that what I was surrounded by was my own product,
Mm.
which were part-time EAs. And the EAs in our company start out making between around $25 an hour. So I had resources around me that I would pay, 25, 26, $27 an hour that I had access to. So part of what I would say to myself is maybe just delegate a little. Like, is this worth $100? Okay, go delegate this little bit. I had the ability to delegate a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. I wasn't burdened by, should I bring on board this big resource that I don't know if I can afford and I will now be bound to
Hmm.
pay? So I think that is part of the beauty of these part-time resources that are sitting at their dining room table today that would work for you for 2 hours and then another couple hours tomorrow and then another couple hours the next day. Oh, but maybe then nothing for a couple weeks. And then they would do a little more and a little more because then you can experiment with, well, do I want to give away the personal stuff? Maybe I only delegate the admin stuff in the business. A family of five going on a spring break, that's a freaking project,
Yes.
and that's a big time drain for a business owner. And that's where it does feel weird to delegate personal stuff sometimes. But again, once you start to do it, I'm like, do I want to spend half my Saturday with my partner, John, ironing out how we're going to drive to California or this trip or that trip? Or do I want to delegate some of that and have an inbox that I have an email in my inbox that just goes, oh, look, there's the flights we could choose from. And here's 3 resorts in that town that we might look at. Like my EA will do all that initial research that I'll just get lost in. So then
Yes.
I'm just looking at, Gina, here's some possible flights, here's some possible resorts, go. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Thank you.
That's huge. Yeah, because my brain will wander and I'll be like, oh, what about an Airbnb? Maybe we go there. Maybe I need to
Exactly.
take Verbo. Maybe I need to do blah, blah, blah. Yes,
Exactly.
travel planning is huge. I have actually used that as a example when I was hiring for an admin assistant role. I used a very practical kind of test, and I said, "Hey, I have this conference at this point in time. I like to fly Delta and Alaska because I have points with them. Can you find me flight options? Here's the dates of the conference." And that was one of the tests that I gave, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I need to do this all the time," because that was really helpful to just have like, here's the 2 best flights for you to choose based on your dates. And then it's very easy to go from there. Um, I love that. So, as you've been growing this business, because you have grown it from literally nothing to what it is now, what have been some of the hardest financial challenges for you as you've continued to grow?
Um, I think it just, boy, we started to we had a couple nosedives. So we nosedived in 2018, end of the summer, right about this time of year, 2018, for whatever reason, really. And I just got scared. And I hadn't had to market for a little bit. So I also was like, um, I don't want to have to do that. But I was like, well, you're either gonna watch this thing dive into the ground or you're gonna do something about it. So I went to my coach, my business coach, and said, help, help, help. And he said, well, what's your conversion rate? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, oh, okay, well, how many conversations do you have to have, to produce a lead, to produce a prospect, to produce a client? And, I was using Pipe Drive at the time, and he's like, just go into Pipe Drive. I'm sure I can figure it out. And I went in there and I was like, I can't figure it out. I don't know. I don't want to. I was just being like resistant and cranky and upset about the whole thing. And he goes, okay, I don't care if you pull out a piece of paper, pull out a freaking notebook and write down how many contacts you're making, how many
Mm.
conversations that's leading to, how many clients that's leading to. So I did it very analog, some dumb spreadsheet, I'm sure I started. And I did that for about 3 months. And then I went to him and I said, okay, here's my results. I have this many conversations. It results in this many outputs and this many clients. He said, okay. And then he said, well, what do you want to do next quarter? And I said, well, I'd like to sign 8 new clients next quarter. And he said,
Mhm.
okay, well, how many conversations are you going to have working it backwards? And I said, 96.
Yeah.
I said, okay. But then I divided it by 13, weeks in a quarter. And I was like, okay, that's like, I don't know, 8 or something a week. And I was like, I can stomach that. And I started to just do that. And 6 weeks later, the whole thing started to pick back
Yeah.
up. Now, that's not a financial challenge. I know you asked me for a financial
Yeah.
challenge, but that was, I guess I have financial like pains in my head before they happen. I'm like, oh, no, no, like we have to head this off at the pass before I deal
Well,
with
yeah, I mean, that's
serious
huge.
pain.
You saw like the reality of like revenue dropping off or clients dropping off or hours dropping off, whatever you were measuring. And then you fixed it by working backwards. So I think that that's incredibly valuable. And then the fact that you did that thing, you deconstructed it, and then you worked that, through that, it fixed the problem. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I'm
I
hearing.
mean, I know ultimately it comes down to you have to get out there. Okay, well, get out there where? How much? Is that on LinkedIn? Is that on social media? Is that going to a networking meeting? Is that emailing? What is that? It doesn't matter ultimately. You just got to keep getting out there. And I think people just get really stuck with like, oh, I'm doing it all wrong, or I don't have the right marketing approach, or I don't have this. I don't know. I don't know, but stop. People spend so much time ruminating on like how to do it right or what they should be doing versus,
Yeah.
I don't know, go call 10 people today and tell them, this is what I do. I'm looking for clients.
Yeah. That can be that simple. I think, yeah, people get really stuck in like trying to find the perfect thing, but sometimes you can't find the perfect thing until you've tried some things that maybe aren't perfect. Or you're like, hey, okay, maybe that wasn't the best strategy, or that wasn't the best conference for me to go to because there really weren't great prospects there. But you wouldn't know that if you hadn't gone to a conference and like done
Right.
that thing. So you can start to kind of like tailor your marketing approach as you do it. And sometimes we want to just make it easy and we want the easy button of somebody else do it for me.
Yeah.
It's really hard in marketing, especially when you're, doing, I guess, growing your business from scratch. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so what are some metrics that you pay attention to in your business? Like, what are some numbers that, whether you call them KPIs or you just call them, maybe it's like, a revenue number or maybe it's, something else. What are numbers that matter in your business?
Yeah. Well, uh, we love our gross revenue, right? Because everybody loves that number.
Everybody
And
loves revenue. We
because
love revenue here.
so we always have a goal for that, for the month, for the quarter. We do 2 retreats a year, me and the 2 managers. Um, and my
And you
biz dev
share
manager,
you share those numbers with your managers, right?
we
That's
create
very
them
cool.
together. I have
Oh,
my
great.
biz dev manager really create it because I'm like, this is your baby.
Yeah.
This is your baby. You got to love this. I'll have you win your game. What's your game? So when last time we had a retreat was in June or so, and she said, all right, we're going to end the year here. And if I can't get it, I go, I don't know, it sounds a little pie in the sky. Like I want you to be aspirational. So she made 3 tiers of goals. I said to her, I said, okay, because she's very optimistic, which is great for a biz dev manager. But every now and then I have to be like, okay, come
Mhm.
back down to earth here for a minute.
Right.
And I said, all right, let's put it this way, Jennifer, you're going to chew off your right arm if we don't do what? And she goes, okay, all right, I gotcha. So then she created these 3 tiers. She's got we call it the chew off the arm goal. And then she has this thing called her personal sexy goal, just because that inspires her. And then she has the I'm knocking it out of the effing park goal.
Yes.
And so I've had those 3 numbers, in front of me, and she broke it down by month. And so now as the months go by, we're looking to see where we at there. So we do look a lot at that because, well, on the one hand, it's kind of I guess, a naive, not a naive, it's a low, people without all the distinctions you have about finance, it's kind of a low bar to be looking at. But it has us have to wrestle with, it's not just about how many clients do we now have to sign, but we also have clients go.
Mm-hmm.
right? So the value of retention is very, very big and has us
Yeah.
think from retention as much as, if not more, how do we add?
Right.
Because you can add till the cows come home. So the gross, but then we're always looking at one of the ahas early on. My CPA actually told me, she said, you realize what you're actually selling are hours, hours. And you want to find out how many hours per day or per week need to be sold for you to be at the margin you need to be at such that all the business bills can get paid and you can get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember once upon a time, this was years ago, I remember just, it was for whatever reason, it was 29 hours a day at one point. Once I had that number like emblazoned in my head, I was like, okay, are you at 29 hours a day or not? Now they're selling those hours. Like you say you're going to use 2 hours a day. So and so is using 2 hours a day. All these clients are all using different amounts per day. We've sold 29 hours per day, but are we utilizing? Are we, how do I explain it? Are we raking in what we sold? So
Yeah.
we sold to you, you said, I'm going to use my EA 2 hours a day. We go, great. But now you end up only using them 1 hour a day.
Oh.
So now we end up only invoicing you for 1 hour a day. So we've left money on the table because we've left hours on the table.
Mm.
So we have a big grid that I made 7 years ago, and it still is it. It just has every client, how many hours per day they are, average amount of work days in a month, which I think comes out to like 21. So we're predicting that we're going to make X amount of money off of them. The contractor costs us this. Contractor costs us about 50% of what we're charging the client.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, our revenue is this. In the beginning, I was happy to pay out 60% to the staff and keep 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to get to 50-50. And we're closer now to 50-50.
Yeah. 50-50 is what we would I find it hard sometimes as these like personal services to get to 50-50, but it's definitely doable. So I like that. And that's kind of a good kind of target for a lot of people listening who might be looking at like, well, what margins are possible? We look at like something called labor efficiency ratio with our clients. And that's like where, for every dollar of labor, we like to bring in $2 of gross revenue or gross margin.
Yes.
So that's basically your 50-50 number right there. So super helpful. Thank you for giving us some information there because I think that's the stuff that people aren't talking about all the time, but we really kind of want to know like how is it really working where it can be successful. You're a business that has never had to take out debt. So that means that you're operating your business in a profitable position. You're still able to get paid working 10 hours a week. So it's absolutely a success story. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I know we have to wrap up here, which I don't want to because I have a lot more questions for you.
Okay, good.
But I'm going to have to just to respect your time.
Yeah.
But if I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I want to make sure I point people to your website, and that's athenaexecutiveservices.com, correct?
That's
Perfect.
right.
Okay. So, a last question for you is what are some of your favorite tools or software that you use with running your virtual business?
Well, I'll tell you what my managers use because I'm like Excel, right? I'm old school and I'm like, you guys are running it. So you guys should run it with what you want. And if I'm a burden, just tell me, Gina, you have to go get trained in Asana now.
Yeah.
So they run a lot on Asana. Um, and they tried to get me on board. I was not very good, but I also don't want to be that involved. I want to force them to be involved. But when they have meetings with me, they bring up Asana and they run through all kinds of stuff. And of course, we use Slack. Uh, we use Pipedrive
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
CRM.
The two managers do. I personally, like as the CEO, the overseer, I just use Todoist. If you can imagine, it's very basic,
Oh, yeah.
but they, it's just, and all that I put in there for my business. Now I use it for my personal life and all these other areas, but they're just things that I want to check up on Jennifer about. Like Jennifer said, she's going to send out those surveys next week. So then I'll give myself a little to-doist that says, next time you talk to JT next Monday, just see, did those surveys go out? So it's a lot of what's in there is just, let's just check up and make sure the ladies did what they said they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I live and breathe on that. We're on Zoom all the time. Used to use Evernote a lot more, not so much anymore.
Mhm.
Those are all the ones come
Yeah,
top of
that's
mind.
helpful. Yeah, so we typically see some kind of project management, task management type of software, and then I'm often asked about CRM. So you guys are liking Pipedrive, so it's good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you, Gina. Thank you so much for being here. Is there any other thing that you would like to add, or where people can reach out to you if they have any questions or they want to talk to you
Yeah,
directly?
if you want to get to me, LinkedIn's a great way to find me. You can just personal message me. I stay up on that. If you want to know more about the company, yeah, go to the website. If you decide you want to talk to somebody about it, you'll see buttons all over the website. It says learn more, and it's going to send you to Jennifer Tracy. And she's just super easy to talk to, even if you just want to pick her brain and be like, I don't know if I need you guys. I don't actually know what I need. She'll be
Mm,
like, no, you don't need an us. You should go do that. Or how about this? Or, she's happy to brainstorm with people too.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Gina. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.